Welcome everyone. I just want to do a quick intro of me. I'm Bernard, founder of AlphaCam, and I'll talk more about it, who we are. And today we have a special guest, Morgan. It's a good friend of mine. We've been working for the past couple years now. He's actually based in LA, so I really appreciate his time. I'll do a more proper intro later. And the topic is, it's a term that I don't like very much, which is growth hacking. And I can tell you why I don't like the term growth hacking. But first, I want to welcome everyone. Next, Morgan, please. First of all, we have Taiwan here in Taipei. Thanks so much for San Chuang and Bacon Fangda for helping us to get the venue. In Taoyuan, we have the Qingchuang Zhihuibu. And then at Hsinchu, we also have a location here for Jiada Jiazhuqi. Next. In Singapore, we are hosting this webinar at our campus. So we have a campus in Singapore. We started AlphaCam Singapore about last year. And our partner is Capital Land, which is one of the biggest real estate companies. They're providing us the office and the campus also. Thanks so much for them. Next. In Hong Kong, we are partnering with Blueprint. I'm not sure if you heard about them. They are backed by Swire Group, one of the biggest conglomerate. They own Cathay Airline, they own properties, they own shopping malls. And I think 2 years ago, they started one of the biggest co-working space and one of the top regional incubators focused on B2B. And I'm one of their mentors. I think they've done great work changing the Hong Kong ecosystem. And for this session, we could make it happen thanks to VPod. Both Victor and Arthur, who's now general manager, and VPod Hong Kong, our friends, they put together the Hong Kong venue in 18 hours. So thanks a lot, VPod, and thanks to all the friends in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan for the day. Next. So just a short intro for AlphaCam. Just want to see, in Taiwan, does anyone have not heard of AlphaCam before? Okay, so I'll skip really fast. We are a school. We are a startup school. We focus on helping people to get into the new economy. So we give our students basically three things: a core skill, a mindset, and a network, a talent that focus on innovations and startups. Next. Our main program is a 10-week bootcamp, which focuses on 4 skills. iOS app, kind of building your own mobile app, web full stack development, UI, user interface and user experience design, as well as marketing and growth, which is very keen to the topic today. Next. So today our speaker is Morgan Brown. He is the co-founder of growthhackers.com together with Sean Ellis. He also wrote a book of Startup Growth Engine, which is one of the top kind of startup growth books on Amazon. His current role is a COO at Inman News, which is a real estate newsletter publication. It's kind of like a Bloomberg for the real estate market. I'll let him further elaborate on himself, but without further ado, a big round of applause for Morgan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bernard, and thank you all so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. Well, it's tonight where I am. Good morning where you are. When Bernard asked me what he wanted me to talk about, and he said growth hacking, he mentioned that he doesn't love the term, and it's great to get a chance to talk about it because there is so much confusion and a lack of understanding about what growth hacking is or isn't. There's a lot of debate about it. And so what I wanted to do is share with you my perspective and the things that I've learned since starting growthhackers.com, which is a community for marketers and product managers and entrepreneurs such as yourselves to learn about how to grow a company. Sean is actually the gentleman who coined the term growth hacking back in 2010, and I don't think he quite knew what he was unleashing onto the world when he coined it, because there's a lot of noise and confusion and ultimately, BS nonsense around the term. And so what I want to do today is share with you exactly what I've learned, how companies grow, what the growth hacking process looks like and how you can use it to drive growth at your companies. And I'm going to warn you that it probably doesn't look exactly like what you've heard it looks like. So with that said, let's jump in. If you Google growth hacking, you get millions of results. And most of them look like this, right? They are lists of tactics. And, the thing that they all have in common is that they're mostly about silver bullets and black magic and unicorns and pixie dust that if you just sprinkle them onto your business, they will grow. And I am sorry, but this is not how companies grow. These posts can be good for inspiration, but they are bad for trying to just copy and use them to grow your business, because tactics are different for every type of business and every type of market. And rookies, amateurs are the ones that over rely on tactics. The pros, the professionals, the entrepreneurs think more in terms of the process and applying that process to the market and to the problem they're trying to solve. So when you come across these blog posts, and there are plenty of them on the web, remember that they're great for inspiration, but no great company was ever built off of one of these list articles. None that I know of. And my favorite story with these types of articles comes from one of my friends who's a marketer at HubSpot, which is $1 billion unicorn, publicly traded in the United States. And she found one of these posts that talked about advertisements to run on Facebook for SaaS companies, right? For software as service companies. And in it was one of the ads that they run at HubSpot. But the funny thing is that HubSpot runs thousands of ad variants. They test lots of different ads. And the one that was included in the post, titled "The Must Run Ads for Your Business," was actually the worst performing ad out of all the thousands that they had run in the last few months. Someone had just taken a screenshot of it on Facebook and put it in their post. And so that's kind of what happens with some of these posts. So just be careful. Don't believe everything you read on the internet when it comes to growth and growth hacking. But there's all this interest in it, and the question is why? Why are people suddenly so excited about growth hacking when it comes to startups and business? And I think it comes down to two things. The first is the world has really changed in the last 15 years when it comes to marketing, and technology trends are changing how companies grow. And then the second way is that founders such as yourselves and entrepreneurs and people running these companies are tired of marketers who can't prove out their results. So let's start with the trends first. The first is something that's hard to really understand in your day-to-day life, but when you look at the data coming in through your business, is that the massive leaps in data and connectivity has totally changed the marketing game. We get more data faster than ever before at any point in time. And the companies that can leverage that data and use the real-time data to make decisions and move quickly win. The second is, and I don't have to tell you all, but the rise and fall of these massive online platforms. In the States, we have the rise of MySpace, and then MySpace collapses and gives way to Facebook, and Twitter rises up, and now it's Snapchat, and it's almost impossible to keep track of these huge platforms that have hundreds of millions of people on them that come and go faster and faster. And then you have the app stores and the different chat clients and whatnot, and these collections of people just change the way that companies are able to reach them. And then third is that marketing has become a technical field. Marketing used to be about awareness And now it is a much more technically oriented practice where if you use some of the technologies that you use to build products to actually drive growth, you're able to find a lot of wins that didn't exist before. So those are the kind of the trends that are changing marketing and have given rise to growth hacking. The second part is kind of the psychology of entrepreneurs. So Andrew Chen, who runs supply growth for Uber, said that growth hacking came about in Silicon Valley because the startup entrepreneurs thought that marketers didn't have any clue how to grow online products, and that they were only going to buy expensive television ads around really big sporting events, the Super Bowl and whatnot. And then marketers, digital marketers, people who love data, were tired of getting lumped in with the brand marketers who were just buying these really expensive, wasteful advertising. And so marketing has a really bad reputation of not measuring what they do. And growth hackers measure everything. And so that's really why we get the rise of growth hacking, is because when traditional marketers say we can't measure it, growth hackers say we absolutely have to. And growth hackers, the marketers that think in terms of growth first, put measurement and growth ahead of everything else. They don't do things that don't actually result in driving the business forward. So that's why. But what is it? What is growth hacking? So let's all get on the same page. And I think the problem is that if you ask 10 people, you will get 10 different answers. And in fact, Conversion XL, which is a fantastic blog that I recommend you read regularly if you're trying to figure out growth and marketing, they wrote a post where they asked 8 of us, how would we define growth hacking? And all 8 of us had completely different answers. And so, some people say it's about black magic shortcuts. I totally disagree. Some people say it's just a fancy name for conversion rate optimization, kind of improving the performance of your marketing funnels. And sometimes it is. I'll give some examples of that. Some say it's engineering-led marketing, right? So marketing done by the engineering and product team as opposed to traditional marketers. And I also tend to agree with that. And some say it's just about the scrappy hustle, the startup grind. And I actually disagree with that, because I've seen lots of entrepreneurs hustle for a very long time and never find any growth. So the way that I define it, and again, one of many different ways to define it, is that growth hacking is experiment-driven marketing focused on how the product creates growth, right? So it's about how when people use the product, how does that create growth for the business? So that's enough with the semantics. I actually want to get in and show you how it works, how the growth hacking process works. I've spent thousands of hours studying the world's fastest growing companies, from Uber, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest. And these growth studies are published on growthhackers.com, and they're also being republished at Harvard Business School to be taught to their marketing and e-commerce courses. And what I found is that they have a growth hacking process that I'm going to take you through. And then I'm going to show you how even you as an entrepreneur right now, even if it's just 2 people on your team or 10 people, can use this process, and how we've used it at Inman, which is a small company, but we've used it to grow the business 50% in the year and launch a subscription product that has gone from $0 to a $4 million run rate in 15 months. So the punchline with these really big companies, after doing all this research, is that even though they have different business models, different market segments, they all have one thing in common. And that's that they use rapid experimentation to drive growth. So for instance, if you look at Twitter, back in their heyday between 2010 and 2012, you can see that The red line represents their experimentation activity during 2010, where they were only running about 2 growth experiments per month, so 1.5 test per week. And then in 2011, Satya Patel, who ran growth for Twitter during that time, put it upon the team to run many more experiments. So they started running 10 per week. And you can see that when they started experimenting, their growth trajectory changed rapidly. And you find this pattern just over and over and over again in all of these companies. So for example, HubSpot, which I mentioned, they have a product called Sidekick, which is a Gmail plugin for their CRM. That team ran over 1,000 experiments in a 12-month period. Amazon is known for running hundreds of tests per month. I actually was just talking to the CEO of Taco Bell, a big fast food chain here in the States, and they went from running 1 test every 6 months to running 1 test every 2 weeks, rapidly increasing their testing velocity, and it's unlocked a ton of growth. And so growth really relies on optimization. So let's look at Twitter and some of the growth hacks, quote unquote, that they ran during this time period. And I think what you'll see is that there isn't any black magic. It's just that they learn faster than anyone else. So you can see here, these are the home pages from 2010 to 2011, but they just test many different home pages, many different versions, pictures, copy, call to action, UX, and they just kept testing this. They did things like fix form validation errors, which led them to add 80,000 new accounts per day just because they fixed a broken form. You know, this isn't black art. This is just smart optimization. And then today, Pinterest is now using machine learning to rapidly increase their testing rate. So in the past, most of these experiments had to be run by people, by a team, and they had to choose which tests to run. Pinterest built its own machine learning testing algorithm, which lets them optimize the copy in all of their communications, all their emails, in 30 languages, running 15 tests of variants each. And then the bot, which they call Copy Tuner, auto-resolves the experiments and moves on to the next one. And they get hundreds of millions of monthly active users, and they've been able to increase that just with these tests by, you know, high single-digit gains, which at 100 million users and above is a ton of growth. And so when you think about it, it really comes down to this fast tempo learning cycle. And the faster these companies can go, the more they learn. And the more they learn, the more they grow. So this is a picture of a college football team here in the United States. And the only reason I show this is because they are unique in college football in that they run an offense that goes much faster than all of the other teams typically go. And the thing is that it's not just one player that goes fast, but the entire organization. So this is a university. The entire university, from the coaches to the players on the field to the facilities that they build, are all designed to create fast growth. And so, you know, when you look at Airbnb, which is famous for its growth hack of Craigslist, most people look at Airbnb and say, hey, that's like a black hat, black hat growth hack. That's what growth hacking is. And I actually disagree. I think what Airbnb did was that they rapidly tested a bunch of different ways to find their audience online, and that they knew that their audience was on Craigslist, and so they worked to find a unique solution to reach their audience when the other solutions they tried didn't work. So from the outside, it looks like, wizardry, but really it's just their team moving faster than everyone else to learn what works. And so what you find at these great companies, the fast-growing companies, is that growth is important to everyone. You know, growth isn't just the responsibility of marketing and sales, but engineering and product and marketing and sales, and everyone believes that growth is really essential. And so the company prioritizes the efforts to grow rather than placing the responsibility on, a lone growth hacker or marketer who has to do it all. And at the heart of these companies is a new team, a new organizational structure called a growth team. Over here, you can see this is the original Facebook growth team, and there is not a marketer on this team. There is a head of engineering, head of product, head of data, and the CEO of the company. And the growth team really pulls together all these different departments and pieces of the company to drive growth. And whether you're a very small company where everyone's on the growth team, or you're part of a larger company where you need to have different people working on growing the business, you want to have a team that owns the core metrics for growth for your business, where they think about them all the time. And usually on growth teams, you have a head of growth, a product manager, an analyst, a growth engineer, a digital marketer, and then specialists like designers and UX people when you need them. But even if you're just one or two people or a small team, everyone should be on the growth team. When Sean was at Dropbox, there were just 7 people. And on their growth team was the CEO, Drew, Sean, who was a consultant, and an intern, and an engineer. And so no matter your size, thinking in terms of growth is really essential. But if you're like, hey, I don't know marketing, I don't know growth, I need someone on my team to help, then you want to find people who think more like product managers and more like scientists and less like marketers. So obviously having some digital marketing experience is very helpful, but you want someone who's analytical, who loves to experiment, who is fearless, who is willing to try new things, and who is determined, who doesn't give up, because so many growth experiments fail, right? By definition, most of what you do doesn't succeed. It's only by learning faster than everyone else that you find growth. So I want to take you quickly through the process that these growth teams run. And this process is a loop. And the faster that companies get through this loop, the faster they grow. And this is the growth hacking process. This is what companies like LinkedIn run. This is what companies like Pinterest run. And this is what we run at Inman, where I am, with just a 20-person team that has unlocked all this growth. And it comes down to 4 key steps: ideate, prioritize, test, and analyze. So keep this loop in your mind as I go through the next few slides. So the first thing is that ideas are the fuel for growth. Without a lot of ideas, you can't have good ideas. And so you want to get the full team participating in growth ideation. So you want engineers to offer ideas, you want marketers to offer ideas, you want your executives to offer ideas, and you want to collect all of these ideas. They're like the raw materials for driving growth. And then you want to do it across the entire customer life cycle. So not just out in the channels, not just Facebook marketing or social media or Google AdWords, but every step of the customer life cycle, from activation to retention, revenue, referral, and resurrection. And then it's not just about brainstorming ideas. These ideas are written as hypotheses. And it's really important that you think like a scientist, and that hypotheses are written based on the evidence that you have available to you. So whether that's customer interviews that you've done when you've talked to customers about what they need, or whether it's the data out of your web analytics, or whether it's survey information, but your ideas impact the quality of your ideas dictates how much growth you'll get out of them, how much impact you'll create. And so you really want to focus on not just brainstorming ideas and, coming up with ideas that sound good. You really want to create sound hypotheses that you can use to test and drive growth. So that's the ideation phase, the very top. The next is prioritization. So every company should have a North Star metric, a core metric that they are focused on and driving towards at all times. Now, it could change. Some companies change their North Star metric every quarter, some every month, some once a year. But you should have the core KPIs that are essential to your business and use those to filter the ideas out. You want to work on ideas that, if they succeed, will really impact and create growth. Don't spend time testing ideas that have a little chance of impact. And then you want the growth team to score these ideas. And we use a system called ICE, where we score an idea on 3 different vectors. One is the impact of the idea, so scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very high impact, 1 being low impact. Confidence, how much data and information do we have around this test to know whether it should work or not? And then ease, how many resources, how much time is it going to take to run this test? An easy test has a score closer to 10, and a hard test that requires a lot of development work or design work has a score closer to 1. And then each week, the growth team nominates the experiments that should be tested out of all the ideas that get created. And remember, it's not about throwing spaghetti against the wall. It's not just trying to test everything. You're really trying to focus on tests that can drive impact. And here's why. If you have a smaller company, if you don't have a ton of traffic, when you run tests that have a larger potential for impact, you actually need a smaller amount of traffic to run these tests, right? So you can see in example C, if I expect a 30% change based on a test I'm going to run, I can run the test in 2 days versus the 72 days that it would take if I only expect a very slight change in improvement off a conversion rate. So this idea of test impact and test time is a whole separate talk, and you can find it. Andy Johns gave a great one, and you can just Google Andy Johns growth talk and you'll find it. But this is an important concept to pay attention to. So once you're prioritized properly, remember the goal is to learn as fast as you can. So moving through this loop faster means that you're winning, or you're learning faster than you ever were. And so even if you're just doing 1 test per month, setting a target to do another test per month, to move up to 2 tests per month, means that you've shortened your learning cycle in half, right? You've doubled your test output. So even if you can only run 1 or 2 tests, setting a target and sticking to it is really essential. And then you have to learn something on every test. Don't run tests that won't give you clear answers. It's just a waste of time. And you have to invest in closing that loop, right? This is the 4th part of the loop. And if you don't do the analysis and if you don't learn, you can't improve the next time through the loop. You'll end up just going over old ground and never really knowing if what you tested worked or didn't. And then remember, you will get inconclusive tests, but it's important to leave the control in place even when you have an inconclusive test, because you don't really know whether the new version is hurting you or helping you. So stick with what you have when a test doesn't yield results, even if you put a lot of effort into it. It's disappointing, but it's just best practice. And then remember to share the learning with your team. If you do a test and the rest of your team doesn't know about it or can't learn from it, it didn't even really happen, because they will go back over and try to learn that same thing later on. So put your tests in a wiki, make them accessible to your entire company so that you don't run over the same old tests over and over again. And then hold yourself accountable. At Growth Hackers, we run a weekly growth meeting. Every week, we go over the core metrics, we go over the ideas we're going to test for the week, and we hold ourselves accountable to see if we hit that testing velocity. This isn't a brainstorming meeting. This is a process meeting similar to sprint planning like you do when you build out your product. And you can kind of see the agenda here, but if you want, you can download or get copies of this agenda and also the experiment backlog that we use to manage all of our tests at these 2 links. And they're just Google Docs. You can download them and you can use them to kind of run your growth meeting. So that's the process. And the more you get through that, the faster you'll learn and the more growth you'll find. So let me show it to you just real quick with a couple of examples from Inman and how we did it. So first is going back to those listicles, right? All the things that you see on the internet that people say you should do. Well, this was a test where we had social login, where you could either sign in with Facebook or Google or create your own account. And someone on our team had the idea that, hey, we needed to have social login because they read an article online. And of course, that's a terrible reason to do something. So we all laughed at that person. Not really, it was my idea, so it was a bad idea. But we decided to test taking those social login buttons off. And what we found was, contrary to all the popular advice on the web, when we took those social login buttons off, we saw a conversion rate lift of 24%, a huge increase just by testing our assumptions against something that people said was a best practice. We also run a bunch of tests using third-party tools. So we're a very small marketing team. We only have 4 people on our team. And so we use tools like Bounce Exchange, SumoMe, Optimizely, and Experiment Engine to run tests through systems that don't impact our core product. So this is a test that we ran on Bounce Exchange. They handle the test. They set up all the creative. They provision all the traffic. We don't have to do anything except come up with the idea. And we ran a test that when you exited the funnel, we gave you a coupon for a limited time. And we found that when we gave someone a coupon, we got much higher conversion rates than without a coupon, which makes sense. But what we found is when we tested the coupon amount, that when we offered a 10% off coupon versus a 25% off coupon, the conversion rate was about the same. But we saved about 19% in revenue. So it was a huge win for us. And that didn't take any of our doing. We did that all through Bounce Exchange, which let our team move much faster than if we had to do that test by ourselves. And then don't just test stuff on your website, test everything. Here we run a subscription product. You pay for news at Inman. And we saw that we were having a really bad problem with churn because we offered a monthly plan and an annual plan. And the people that chose the monthly plan were churning too frequently. So we decided to test the monthly plan versus a quarterly plan. And you can see the quarterly plan churn is about 40% less than the monthly plan. And we had no drop in conversion. So remember to test all of your assumptions. And we run this exact same growth process with a team of 20 people in a very small company. And it's helped us grow from a $4 million a year business to a $12 million a year business in about 18 months. So just some things to remember as an entrepreneur, things that you want to do when you go home back to your business. First, build your team and find analytical people from across your organization, from engineering, from product, from your networks, to help you really figure out how to drive growth. Then build your growth process so that you have a positive feedback loop where you're constantly learning. And then don't just run tests and experiment just for the sake of testing. Don't just test buttons and button colors. Run experiments that can actually create growth if they work. And then hold yourself accountable to how fast you get through the growth process. And no matter what your role in your company, whether you are a one-person founder or in 1,000-person company, be the person who champions growth and get your team focused on it and get them thinking about it constantly so you can unlock growth for your business. And if you do that, then you won't ever have to rely on the pixie dust and silver bullets of these articles. And you can have confidence knowing that just by learning faster than everyone else, you will find real growth for your startup. So that's it. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to connect with me. Platforms are always changing. I'm on Snapchat mostly now, but you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere. So thank you guys very much, and I look forward to taking questions, but thank you so much for your time.
Morgan, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's like a massive applause here.
Cool, thank you.
I'll start with a question. Oh, wait, there's one more slide. Oh, well, we'll go to that later. Let's go to the Q&A.
Okay, you sure you want to go one more slide? Oh, actually, you know what? I think I lost it, but I'll put it back in.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. So
Okay.
let me start. I think two questions. As a founder of a small startup, the experiment concept I think we get, but the tricky part is if we don't have a lot of traffic, right? And we don't have a lot of oh, now we see your face. By the way, this is real.
Hi.
If we don't have a lot of traffic and we don't have the budget to buy the traffic, this whole split testing concept, how do we make it kind of statistically relevant, or how do we make it useful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to use the word experiment as opposed to split test, because for me, split testing is only one type of experiment. But I think you can run experiments in many different ways. So you can certainly split test something, but like you said, Bernard, if you don't have traffic, you'll be limited in how many tests you can actually run. But you can do experiments out in the channel, right? So you can run lots of Facebook ads and understand what type of copy works, what type of image works, what type of offer works for very inexpensive, very little amounts of money. You can also get feedback from your customers about the plan features that they'd like to see, about the pricing that they'd like to pay, and you can use that information to experiment with offers that you make to them. And while you and those, they're not true split tests, but they are experiments about what matters to your customers and your business. And so yeah, I would encourage people not to think of just A/B testing as the only type of experiment. I think there's tests to discover new opportunities, and then there's tests to optimize. And it really depends on where you're at.
Got it. Thank you. I'm passing on another question from the Singapore audience. If you were to hire a growth analyst, what should be their job scope and targets and KPI? And what would a good background per se, like engineer or marketer, or what would you say?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. I think a growth analyst, you want someone who has a business analyst background. So for example, at Inman, the person that runs growth, he's a former accountant from PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Really?
Right. So he's got his bachelor's in accounting, and we treat our user accounting just like finance treats their financial accounting. Just like finance knows every penny in and out of your business, marketing should know every user in and out of your business as well. So I think, accounting background, business analyst background, some marketers who have a technical or a digital background, who have done more like direct response or, very numbers driven marketing can be a good person. So that's kind of the profile of the person, and then they should be responsible for measuring the experiments and helping kind of get the data fluency of the company to where it needs to be. Yvonne Kerrigan, who is the CEO of YesGraph, he was the former head of growth at Dropbox and worked on the Facebook payments team, said that the role of the analyst and the role of analytics should be to reduce the cost of asking questions about your business to zero, right? And I think it's such a brilliant insight where if you want to know something about your business or your marketing, if it takes 4 days to answer that question, that's a very expensive question. But you should be able to answer any question very quickly. And the data analysts, that's their role, is to not only analyze the tests, but to help build out the infrastructure and the fluency of your startup to be able to answer those questions quickly. The first hire that I made as COO at Inman was a data scientist. The second one was a head of growth with an accounting degree. It's very different than kind of traditional marketing. Got
it. Good to hear there are a lot more interesting prospects for these accounting students. One question from the Taiwan audience, and unfortunately that might be due to the inexperience of the investors here. The question reads, it takes time to run tests and learn the market and all that. Unfortunately, investors don't have that kind of patience. Have you had experience or supported startups where the investors are kind of coming after you for growth, for that kind of healthy stake and all that? How would you advise a startup to communicate this kind of experimental mindset to the investor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every company faces some type of pressure to grow. And yeah, some investors will be less reasonable than others. And I think it comes down to a couple things. One, investors get very antsy when there aren't answers, right? And I think there's a difference between being experimental and having the time to figure out what works and not having the answers that investors want, right? And so this is where it comes down to kind of having the proper analytics and data in place. I found in my experience that when investors and board members ask questions that can't be answered, that's when they start to get, when they run out of patience. But if you're able to answer questions and say, hey, we ran 12 tests this quarter, that's 25% more than we ran last quarter. We learned X, Y, and Z that have set us up for more growth. We have accomplished these things. And I find that when you have the proper data and the proper approach to it, that they are more patient when they can see a process being run and experiments being done than when you show up every 3 months without a lot of answers and not a very clear communication of what you've done to try to find growth.
Got it. So communication as well as data. Let them see that you're learning, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also you have to set expectations for what success looks like. For example, if you improve your growth rate 5% every week, you're on a massively fast trajectory. If you improve it 5% every month, you're essentially doubling every year. So 5% a week is an incredibly fast growth rate, and you should just kind of model out what that looks like. But I think when you know what your investors expect and you know the growth rate you're supposed to hit, then you can prioritize your effort properly. I think that's one of the beauties of Y Combinator is that they set such aggressive growth goals, and then all they do is focus on those goals. And I found a lot of startup teams get distracted with things other than growth that if they actually knew how fast they should be growing, if they were on the same page as their investors, if they had expectations that aligned with their business model, that they would be in a better place.
Got it. I got one question, and then it's really to your experience. You helped a lot of companies, especially to seek type of company, consumer-focused companies drive growth. But Inman, as I understand it, it's a 2B company, it's a B2B company. Your newspaper is for other businesses. Is there particular differences in terms of driving growth in a 2B market versus a 2C market?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had the opportunity to work on both kinds of businesses, and I think there are definitely some differences in them. I think with a B2B business, you typically have higher lifetime values, which means that you can spend more in customer acquisition, and you're guaranteed that you get that money back if you have your unit economics down. So, for example, Inman's subscription is $200 per year. And so we know that we can pretty easily spend $30 to $50 per customer, no problem. And we typically use a 3x, CAC to LTV ratio. And even if we use lifetime value of 1 year, spending $30 to $50 is no problem. In a B2C company, depending on, like, if you're a social network, you maybe can't spend any money, right? If you're, because you don't have the unit economics, and it actually might make sense to give the product away for free than to charge anything, because you can grow faster through network effects and word of mouth and that type of thing. So I think really understanding your unit economics is the first step, regardless of the model. And then understanding, like, how much can I spend on cost per acquisition? What's my expected lifetime value? And how quickly do I need to recover that cash to keep my business running as well?
Got it. And you say your cap was about 30%, one third of the lifetime value that you spend on acquisition.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's really good insight. One more question from Singapore. I think it should be an easy one. Previously, I think we saw the R with an extra R than they occur, the AR resurrection. Can you explain a bit about what that is?
Sure. So resurrection is bringing customers back who have gone inactive on you. So, for example, at Inman, where we have a subscription, resurrection would be winning back customers who churned and canceled their subscription. They're effectively, dead from a customer contribution standpoint, but there's an opportunity to win them back and have them contribute to the company's growth. The same goes with a mobile app or a community or an email list or e-commerce, that you can revive a certain percentage of your dormant users or users who are no longer participating, and those small percentages can help drive greater lifetime retention, lifetime value, and add important percentage points back to your overall growth by re-engaging customers who have previously left.
Got it. Thank you. Let me ask Taiwan. Is anyone from the Taipei location has any questions?
Yeah, do I just speak? Or?
You can speak. I'll try to translate.
No, I can speak in English.
Oh, I know. Okay, fine. I don't know if it's
Hi, Morgan. This is Justin, and I think I've heard you through Ryan Moran or either through Nathan on the podcast, if that's correct. But anyway, my question is, because I read some of the books by like Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, and the lead startup like Eric Rice, to emphasize your idea about the rapid learning, building the product or service at a really fast pace. But my question is, because I think a lot of Taiwan audience, we do manufacturing, we produce physical products. So my question I'm trying to think is that if we're trying to do it in like a really fast iteration, that means we're going to be shipping better on the product version. But if we do that, I think as a brand value for the company, the consumer will complain if you ship like a better product. So what I want to know is that what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And obviously, when you have hardware, when you have a physical product, your ability to iterate has a lot to do with batch sizes, right? And so I'll give just one example, which is somewhat relevant. I was talking to the CEO of Taco Bell just literally the other day, and they used to run tests in their restaurant. So they make food, physical product. It's not hardware, but it's still something that you have to put out into market after lots of planning, and it's hard to test quickly on that. And they used to run tests once every 6 months, and it would cost them $10 million per test to run. And they would run one every 6 months about around a new menu item or a new kind of food or something. And what they found was that they built a couple of learning restaurants right by their headquarters, and now they can test new food items once every 2 weeks. The data is just as valid, and the test costs about $500,000 per test to run. So 20x reduction in test costs and a 12x improvement in test time frame. So obviously it still takes a while to come up with a new menu item. It still has to be cooked, and you still have to source the ingredients, and you have to teach people how to cook it and serve it and package it and put it on the menu. So it's not that the cost goes to zero, but that you want to look for ways to create smaller batch sizes and test those in smaller settings before you do larger production runs where you can't make changes very easily. So yeah, but hardware is definitely its own animal, and I think if you can do more with smaller groups of beta users up front and do more kind of lab type testing on on a faster prototype cycle, that will be where to get your best gains. But I'm not a hardware expert, so that's just my one man's opinion. But that's a great question.
Thank you.
请问一下，就是说，那个在这么多的 test 要 run 的状况下，我们是同时间 run 呢，还是说，如果说每一个是没有在同时间在 run 的时候，那就是 run 的时候，我们会有一点担心互相会干预，互相就是
同时的或者互相测试，还是
因为我们在 run 的时候，我们会测试不同的 variable 设定。那不同设定在 run 的时候。那如果说时间 run 不够的状况下，我们只是做 experiment， 那我要多久一般我们需要一个 experiment 的单一是设定多久，然后才不会去干预到下一颗的测试。
Okay, you got all that?
No problem.
That's usually why it exists. So the question is on running experiments, and when you the question is in what context or environment or what resource you have that you would run kind of multivariate concurrent tests. That's A. And B is when you run tests, how long do you run the test, and how long do you have gaps between the tests to ensure there's no interference, right? There's like residual impact of whatnot from the previous tests that might actually affect the one that's after.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So the first thing I would do is there are lots of great test calculators out there on the web that can tell you the sample sizes that you need in order to reach different levels of statistical confidence around different expected rates of change or differences in variance, and also to what statistical power those results are valid. So I would use, the first answer is I would use one of those calculators. My rule of thumb, for smaller teams is, always use 99% as your confidence level. And also to have a minimum of 200 conversions per variant, usually gives you, enough of, kind of gives you a decent baseline. But I would use the calculators and figure out what statistical power you're comfortable with to design a test. So that's part one. And
part
then
two is on time gap between experiments. How do you ensure that the last experiment doesn't interfere for whatever reason of your next?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, like, we're trying to compound wins on top of one another. So we run tests as soon as one is done. We don't wait. We know that there can be noise in our tests, but we are of the we're more practical. We're not scientists. We're not trying to publish a research paper. We're trying to make more money, and so we are okay with some variance. We try not to confound tests, right? So we don't run multiple tests within the funnel that overlap. We try to run tests in different channels. So for example, we might run tests through our mobile web experience and on our desktop web experience at the same time, because they're different funnels. But we try not to confound confound those results by running, concurrent tests in the same funnel. I think it comes down to your comfort level on how conservative or how aggressive you want to be. I think when you're smaller, it's okay to be more aggressive. As you get bigger, you want to be more conservative. But hopefully, as you're bigger, you have more traffic to kind of carve up and do. I think when you're small, you want to be thoughtful, and you want to try to pick tests that will have big impact. When you're large, the actual test is less important because you have so much traffic. You can run it to 1% of your audience and have statistically valid data in 24 hours or less. But then you want to be more thoughtful in your test design to make sure that you're not getting data that it can be a false positive or something along those lines. So it's a great question. I think just like the term growth hacking, if you ask people from different companies and different backgrounds, you will get many different answers. That's how I approach it.
Thanks, Brendan. You got kind of 3 to 5 more minutes. Just make sure you're okay with time.
Sure.
Rather all the questions we have. Let me go back to the hardware a little bit. You and I worked on a project that's kind of like Kickstarter related, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen, and Morgan is actually a avid supporter of Kickstarter. He buys so much stuff on it, it's not even funny. But have you tied back to the previous questions on running experiments and iterations, leveraging other platforms like Kickstarter? Any case studies you've seen, suggestions you've seen that actually that had worked, or it's still very tricky still?
Do you mean in terms of the actual hardware itself or the promotion of the product to get traction?
I think it's leveraging Kickstarter platform to run experiments, right? I mean, on one hand, you would think that it's a pre-sale, so you get some feedback. But on the other hand, you still have to ship the physical product at the end of the day if you succeed. So other than the traditional concept of let's throw it out there, let's get a video, let's not worry about manufacturing, let's see the demand, like that concept, I don't know if, I'm just asking if there's any examples you've seen in terms of running experiments on Kickstarters. For example, right, one version on Indiegogo and the other on Kickstarters and kind of learn what feature matters the most. Like, have people done that? Is that crazy?
No, I mean, I have, so I haven't seen that exactly, but I have seen companies who are venture funded, who have plenty of money, who are going to produce the product anyway, use Kickstarter to help them evaluate product market fit and to test their messaging and the features that they have in the product. So, for example, they have plenty of money, they're going to build this product, and but they still use a Kickstarter campaign to see if the way that they envision the product has enough excitement around it to pull it into the marketplace. I'm blanking on the name of the company, but Bernard, if I think about it, I'll chat it to you. But no, so I know that some people do use it as a testing ground for features and, do I have product market fit with this? Is there interest in it?
Got it. And one question is from me directly. You mentioned a great concept about making growth a horizontal goal, right? So anyone from not just the marketer, not from the sales, from the CEO to the analysts, to the engineers, to the designers, they have to have a growth mindset. Can you give me some example? Because I'm looking at my engineers, right? All he does is want to code and build stuff and I don't know, play video games. How do I instill the growth mindset in him? Is it through KPI? Is it if he's focusing on building a product? If he cares about bugs and stuff like that, what kind of mechanism and culture that I could leverage to have the growth mindset in it? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think having an organization-wide growth mindset starts with the CEO, starts with the leadership team. I think you'll see more and more people in the executive level more focused on growth. So, for example, I'm a COO now, but I came from the marketing side. But I was made the COO because I had created so much value for the company in marketing. They wanted me to do more. I think if you look at other startups, for example, DocuSign, which is a big transaction management company, they're a unicorn, Silicon Valley unicorn worth $3 billion. They just named their first chief growth officer, who is responsible for the growth of the business. Walmart has a 150-person growth team in their e-commerce division, which is half product management, data scientists and engineers, and half digital marketers. So I think the way that it works is that it comes from the top down, and it's focused around, like you said, the KPIs, the North Star metrics, getting everyone aligned with what we're trying to do, what the numbers are we're trying to hit, and getting engineering excited about solving those challenges. To be honest, most of the great growth wins come from the product. And you want engineers who don't think of marketing as spam. You want engineers who think of, creating growth as part of the product experience, because it's a much more natural and organic and sustainable growth lever anyway. So you want them to work with product, work with marketing, to instrument the product, to run experiments. And I'm not saying that you should only be experimental. Of course, you have your product roadmap. You should drive your product roadmap. You have a product vision. You should build that. But you should give time in your sprints with your team to run experiments around product features that may be more experimental and growth focused, that aren't necessarily roadmap features, but that could really unlock new growth for your company, which is ultimately what everyone's looking for.
Got it. Any more questions from the Taiwan? I got one last one from Sintu. Okay. So let's say this is a great talk. Absolutely awesome. Now, let's say the audience go back home and say, commit to the CEO, commit to the investor. We're going to start growing 5% every week, right? Let's let's go for the top things.
Yeah.
Where would be like the step 1, 2, 3 that you would prescribe right now?
Yep.
How would they start doing that? And would they expect that 5% growth sustained for a year? Let's start with the first part. So I'm committed to grow 5% first per week. Would I see that the first week? What should I do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way to figure out how to get to this 5 to 7 per week rate that Y Combinator really drives to is to start with the end first, right? Like, what does 5 to 7 per week actually look like each week and each month for, say, the next 90 days, right? And really kind of, how many users is that? How many subscribers is that? How many downloads is that? How many pre-orders is that? What does that actually look like? And put that into a spreadsheet and model it out so that you know that, like, okay, week 1 it means this, and week 12 it means this, and figure that out for a quarter, and then take those numbers and work backwards to how you think you're going to hit those numbers. And again, I do this in a spreadsheet where, say I need 15,000 visits in a week. So I might say I'm going to use Facebook ads, and I know a Facebook cost per click is X, and I know that I can get this much traffic from Facebook, so that's going to be this portion. I'm going to try public relations or blogger outreach, and I expect this much traffic. I'm going to try SEO, and I expect this much traffic, and I expect this much traffic from email, or whatever it is, and really just try to add them up to get to that number and see if it's realistic and see if you can actually execute on that. But I think it's really working backwards and then kind of figuring out step by step how you get there each and every week. So that's part one. The second part is, no, I do not think that 5 to 7 per week is sustainable for a year. 5 to 7 per week is really what Y Combinator uses between the time you enter YC and demo day, right? So one batch. But if you look at the fastest growing companies, like the real unicorns, and this is for SaaS, so this is just one part, this is, I think, like, if you look at a Slack or something like that, they're growing at around 15% month over month. So 15% per month is really, really fast growth. and that's much slower than 5% per week. And then I would say, the way to kind of figure out if you're growing quote unquote fast enough is that there's a great series of posts by Social Capital. They're on Medium. They're written by Social Capital, which is Chamath's from Facebook, his venture firm. And there's a metric that they use called the quick ratio. And the quick ratio is the number of new users or new money into the system divided by the number of users or money out of the system. And a quick ratio of greater than 4 is something that's very attractive to investors. A quick ratio of greater than 2 means that you're doing quite well, and a quick ratio of less than 2 means that your business is struggling with churn or user churn or revenue churn. But you can Google all of that. Just Google Social Capital quick ratio, and you can read for hours on that.
Got it. By the way, Chamath was actually my college classmates. I'm not sure you joined that. Obviously, we went down a very different path. He doesn't have to work ever again. But thanks a lot. I really appreciate Morgan for the time, and thanks for the audience in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. We will send the deck out, so we'll follow up, and some of the reference material we'll send out to you. Thanks so much, Morgan. You have a good night, and we shall be in touch separately. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Bye. Thanks.
Okay, and for the Taiwan audience, three things. A is thanks for coming in. Hopefully it was kind of helpful to you guys. This will be a whole series. We have about kind of 5 or 6 more coming in. With next time would be a great kind of PR person from Engadget. Anita and TSS kind of brought them in. The week after, Ben mentioned HubSpot. So the Chief Revenue Officer of HubSpot, who also does not work anymore. It was my classmate at MIT. So he will be coming to talk about B2B sales. So he actually grew the business from, he was employee number 3 when we graduated at MIT, and then now he's a lecturer at Harvard Business School, and when company went public. So we talk about sales. We are also in touch with Stripe, Y Combinator, to host these things. So hopefully you kind of follow us. And also on our side, we shall be recruiting as well. So we'll send you email. We're looking for digital marketer, analysts, designers, and all these people. So if you are interested in this space or have friends interested in the space, please email us. And now let me pass the mic to our partners at TSS. By the way, they have put together some snacks and drinks for you guys to network a little bit. And then there's a great series coming up that talks about growth. I'll let Jeffrey talk about that.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey. I'm with TSS, which stands for Taiwan Startup Stadium. If you don't know what that is, and we have the name over there. Maybe you haven't heard of us. We've just moved into the next door office. We're gonna be here for about 5 months. But in any case, we're gonna have a lot of events coming up. Basically, I'm here first of all. Thank you guys for coming to the event, and then secondly, trying to also promote our upcoming big camp, which is again about growth hacking. I hope you have not had too much of growth hacking by now, that you're fed up with it. But we're gonna be having 4 individuals from 500 startups coming in town. It's gonna happen on from May 9th to 11th. That we're gonna have talks, workshops, and then we're gonna have office hours as well. So if you are interested in getting more into details about growth hacking, and then just basically anything to do with it, or just want to kind of meet people who are interested in the subject matter, remember to register for Big Camp. You can find all the details on our Facebook fan page or on our website. Otherwise, I will look forward to see you guys again for the next series, which is going to happen on the 20th of May, like Bernard has mentioned. So I think that's all. But look forward to having more chat with you guys during the network, the next hour for the networking.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
By the way, I actually attended the first GCamp. It was called GCamp then.
Oh, okay.
The first one. It was like 自测会办的。But it was awesome. The content is awesome. So I would highly recommend it. Very immersive learning experience, focused on process, focused on growth. So find Jeffrey if you're interested in driving growth. So we'll put this out, recruit at alphakim.com. We are hiring, expanding. We have office in Singapore. I'm trying to figure out an office in Hong Kong. If you're interested in Vietnam, Malaysia, all these countries that I do not want to live, come talk to me too. And I'll see you in the next event. Thank you.